You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. Pardon me. It's Monday, February 4th, 2019, start of a brand new week. We have got lots to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. Okay, so let's get right on into it here. And I think the news that's probably concerning a lot of people right now is this withdrawal from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and this idea that we're starting a whole new arms race with Russia and China. And for those people who are my age and we remember the Cold War and the arms race back then, just how much it cost and how little it actually accomplished, and how dangerously close we got to an outright nuclear exchange just from accidents and bad equipment, because it happened on 3 occasions that I know of. I'm sure they keep these things hushed up, but we know how close they came during the Cuban Missile Crisis. We know that there was an incident on which the movie War Games was based, where a training tape was fed into the display systems at Cheyenne Mountain. They weren't told it was a training mission. They almost launched then. Then there was another situation where a hardware error had sent a launch command to a missile installation, and fortunately a human intervened and said, "I don't believe this is real." All right, so let's take a phone call. Jim in Chicago, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I want to talk about that governor of Virginia, and this is why I really don't like Democrats. When he was talking about killing a newborn right after the mother had it, the Democrats were quiet, not a word. Then all of a sudden, this thing comes out with being blackfaced, which I don't agree with. Now you have every Democrat under the sun, dead or alive, criticizing the governor. I think he should resign, but where was the outcry and the anger toward him when he was talking about killing a newborn baby?
That's a very, very good question. And it is rather interesting to see the reaction where the corporate media didn't want to cover people's objections to this idea of killing a newborn baby just because the mother said she wanted to. But once they got that yearbook picture and the blackface and the KKK robes, they had grist for the mill to push the racial divide agenda.
Right. But again, which is worse, blackface or killing a newborn baby?
Well, obviously, in my book, killing a newborn baby is much, much more serious. But again, right, the Democrats are going to be running in 2020 on that agenda of unlimited abortion to get the woman's vote. Yes, you want to get rid of your kid, no restrictions.
Right, and this is why I don't like Democrats. And my final question, if Trump was president during the Cuban crisis situation, do you think you and I would be alive today?
It's kind of hard to say. In a lot of ways, I don't think he lives up to the Kennedy legacy. And certainly with the people who are surrounding him now, they would have been saying, go ahead and launch, go ahead and launch, go ahead and launch.
That's what I thought. Okay. Well, Michael, you take care. Have a good show.
All right. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open. So we're talking about this Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The U.S. is withdrawing. They're making stink face toward Russia. But apparently the real issue for the United States is that China wasn't part of that Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, and China is building missiles that fall into the definitions of that treaty, and the United States wants to start building them as well. So the U.S. apparently had been planning on pulling out of the INF for quite a long time, and gearing up for it. In fact, there's already a report that Raytheon has already set up an assembly line in Arizona to start making these missiles for the United States government. Now, Paul Craig Roberts is out with an article basically denouncing Washington, D.C. from resurrecting the arms race, putting the world much closer to a horrible accident. And again, this is all the war hawks, the military-industrial complex, the neocons. And, you know, back when Reagan and Gorbachev signed this agreement to destroy all of these land-based nuclear missiles, it was hailed as a tremendous achievement in nuclear disarmament. And back then, everybody thought nuclear disarmament was going to be a really good thing. And it would be. These are really horrible weapons of mass destruction. And for people of the younger generation, you see them on movies and TV, you don't really have a sense of just how incredibly powerful these weapons are and how destructive they are. So we're headed down this very dangerous path here. And Russia has now responded to the U.S. withdrawal from the INF by pulling out of the INF. Putin is slamming the U.S. for demolishing global security and safety. And Putin is saying that Russia's response will be a mirror response. And the Russian president ultimately blames Washington's years-long systematic undermining of the agreement. And it's not the first one. Don't forget when the United States pulled out of the anti-ballistic missile agreement, and they were already in violation of it with some of their new weapon systems. But everybody's pulled out of the treaty, and these nuclear missiles are going to get built. All right, we're going to do a shout out to our Honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. So, story coming out of Sputnik News, basically saying that at this point, the United States is likely to develop new missiles to counter China. And the primary motivation does seem to be the fact that China was never a participant in the pact. This is coming from Rajeshwari Pillai, who's a senior fellow and head of the Nuclear and Space Policy Initiative Observer Research Foundation. So we're in another arms race. It's going to be very expensive. Of course, it's going to be very lucrative for the weapons companies, these companies who build nuclear missiles. And it's rather insane to think about it. I mean, we're all hoping they'll never actually be used. Meanwhile, Russia has released a photo, a satellite image, of what they say is Raytheon Corporation's plant in Arizona. The photos date back to the 3rd of December of last year and shows a very large assembly complex. One unit was still under construction back then. And Russia is claiming that this is where the United States is going to start assembling intermediate-range nuclear missiles. Now, there's a lot of rumblings coming on out from the White House. As you know, tomorrow's the State of the Union address. And there was one report that said Trump is going to reiterate his desire to get our troops out of Syria and out of Afghanistan. But then we have this other story here from Anti-War that Trump is facing growing pressure from the Senate to keep our forces in Syria, to keep our forces in Afghanistan, to maybe send more troops in. And apparently the issue is the concern that Israel has to be protected. Well, you know, Israel can pretty much protect itself. They are a nuclear power. But this is Israel's game. Use the United States, use the Americans to fight their wars for them. Now, Trump is insisting that we're going to be leaving our forces inside Iraq to watch Iran, to keep an eye on those evil Iranians. Like apparently our satellites in orbit can't do the job here. But Iraq's president has basically come out and said Trump has not asked for permission to be in Iraq watching Iran. And President Barham Salih is saying that the U.S. needs to stick to its mission fighting terrorism. and that Iraq really does want the U.S. forces basically to leave at some point. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Tom in Indiana, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Tom, are you there? Tom in Indiana, going once, going twice. All right. Okay, so let's talk about Afghanistan. We've been stuck in Afghanistan for 17 years, going on 18 years. Basically, it's ground to a halt. The Taliban is gaining ground. At the end of 2001, when all of this was starting, the Taliban was reduced to just a little tiny corner of the country, and slowly, bit by bit, they're gaining ground. And I hesitate to overuse the analogy all that much, but it's another Vietnam. Less jungle, obviously, a lot more mountainous terrain, but we're not winning. And apparently, we're finally starting to get word that there have been negotiations between American officials and the Taliban, which seems to be a tangible step towards ending this war. Now, of course, the U.S. is going to want to get out of Afghanistan without admitting any kind of defeat. They're still going to want that pipeline, which was a major reason for the war. America's drug lords and pharmaceutical industries are going to want a guarantee of access to that opium. That's going to be a major sticking point, because when the Taliban was ruling Afghanistan, they eradicated the opium trade. They thought opium and heroin were very, very bad things. If you were caught with a poppy, they'd take your hand off. A bit draconian, but it did work. And opium production didn't come back to Afghanistan until the U.S. invasion. Okay, let's try and go to Tom now. Tom, are you there? Tom, are you there? Okay, apparently he hung up. Alrighty, well, we're having some technical issues. Okay, so apparently there are going to be more talks in the coming weeks, but I think the argument that's going on inside the halls of power in Washington, D.C. is how to get out of Afghanistan without it looking like we lost that one, because that would be a serious blow to the continuing war agenda, which still has Iran in its sights. Now, down in Venezuela, yet another Vietnam getting ready to happen, one of their top Air Force generals has defected. He's calling Guaido the new head of state. He's urging the military to follow. My guess is that whatever his price was, it was met. Air Force General Francisco Yanez published a short video on Twitter where he called on Venezuela's armed forces to follow his lead in recognizing Guaido. And notably, General Yanez is identified on public state military information web pages as the Air Force's head of strategic planning, making him the highest military official to break from the Maduro regime in months. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Joe in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, I watched some TV this morning. They're all saying, Trump's got to listen to the intelligence agencies on this. And I'm like, why should he? I mean, Obama weaponized the CIA and all the intelligence agencies against Trump. They came out, 17 American intelligence agencies came out saying that he was colluding with the Russians and the Russians interfered with our election. I mean, they have a very poor history as far as Trump in his own personal experience. I mean, when he was elected president, you had James Brenner on TV. I couldn't believe what he was saying. Here's the CIA director, and he's out on television running his mouth about how the president's a security risk, almost inviting a coup. I just don't understand how something that he's the president of the United States, how he allows this to go on. I mean, he should cut the funding. He should, I guess they'd say that he was interfering with an investigation or so. I think that's the only thing they got holding over his head, because he ought to expose these intelligence agencies. He ought to show who all the reporters are on TV that are getting paid, who in the Senate that are on the payroll or ex-CIA agents. I'd like to know. And he doesn't owe them anything. They've violated the law of sedition. They've tried to they talk about meddling in elections that the Russians did. What did the CIA do in our election and the FBI's do in our elections? I mean, these people need to go to prison. And it's very upsetting. I mean, I'm upset by this. And now, I like what Alex Jones has been talking about, how all these big cuts in the media are happening right now, 2 years after Obama left, when he funded all that money to propagandize the American people. And now because he can only fund them 2 years in advance, now all that government money's drying up. So all these BuzzFeed and all these lefty people that are reporters that nobody would pay to read their swill, they're all having to lay off people because their government money's been drying out, So I would love to see Trump start announcing who these CIA people in our media, Operation Mockingbird exposed, but not Mockingbird overseas, but Mockingbird in the United States. It's very disgusting.
Well, Mockingbird always operated inside the United States. They weren't supposed to. CIA is not supposed to be doing anything inside the United States. They're supposed to be external security only. But, the FBI and the CIA cross into each other's territory all the time. Trump could come under fire for outing CIA agents. Remember what Bush went through with Valerie Plame? But Trump does have the authority to start firing some of these top officials. They all serve at the pleasure of the president. And the president can say, "I don't like what you're doing. We're going to get somebody else."
Well, if they're interfering in American elections, then they've violated the trust where they no longer have the protection of being intelligence agents, as far as I'm concerned, because they're criminal intelligence agents. If they involve themselves in American politics, as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to bring up something I saw on YouTube today, and that is that I'd mentioned that I called your show there when James Comey was fired and he was off in California. It turns out that they did raid his safe in Washington, and I saw a list of all the documents that they got, and one of them was Hillary's email file. There's a ton, looking at it, I think Comey's going to be in a lot of trouble. And I remember when it happened, I called your show and told you, I bet you that they raided his office, and it turns out they did. So in order to raid his office, they must have known that he's been doing illegal actions. So I would expect James Comey's in a lot of trouble.
Well, and unfortunately, I mean, Comey did a lot of things he should be prosecuted for. So did Hillary Clinton. And unfortunately, within the deep state, their attitude is they're above the law. CIA definitely falls into that as well. I mean, part of their job description involves breaking the laws both of this country and other countries.
Well, I mean, that's why shows like yours are so important, Mike, to get this information out so that the American people can know the level of corruption in this government and demand and to keep being our own Operation Mockingbirds and getting the truth out about this criminal cabal that's known as the deep state. But I think that the only thing that's holding Trump back is the Mueller investigation, because they'll say it's interfering with an investigation. So hopefully when that comes to an end, we're going to start seeing a lot of this stuff drop. And I have a feeling it is. I just believe in justice, and I hope it happens.
Yeah, me too. And I'd like to see justice happen here as well. And
yeah, do you know that Elliot Abrams everybody's been talking about?
Oh yeah, of course.
He's like a real expert on South American stuff, isn't he? Or is
he's been meddling down there for decades.
Yeah, I wonder what Trump. It bothers me that Trump has rehired him. It's kind of, Trump does things that I really like, and then he hires a guy like that. It really puzzles me. The minute I start thinking he's really doing good, and then he hires a scumbag like that, I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you very much for the phone call, Joe. Tom in Indiana, if you want to try calling back on in, we're ready to take your call. We'll be right back.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Your former caller, Elliot Abrams, former war criminal, setting up of death squads in El Salvador or Nicaragua, one or both. Yeah, that's who this guy is. And that really... I don't know. But, Mike, did you hear Trump just nominated a former Halliburton lobbyist, David Bernhardt, for Interior Secretary?
Yes.
So they're bringing in the Halliburton. Man. Mike, if nothing happens February 15th with this supposedly national emergency or whatever the heck, it's over with there's nothing else. There's nothing else to look forward to, right? That's it.
Trump isn't draining the swamp. He's basically opened the door and he's allowing the swamp to ooze right on into the White House.
Hey, Mike, did you see that? Well, you talked about from the Venezuela Air Force general, but how old is that video from? Like,
well, it
know what I
can't
mean?
be all that old because he talks about Guaido, and that hasn't been an issue for more than a month or two.
But Guaido was also bred since 2007, they said. So, you know what I mean? So they already had their and this Air Force general's living in Colombia, supposedly, from what I hear.
Now, that is very interesting. So, like those other so-called Venezuelan defectors, he may not actually be in active service.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Former this or that holds the video, this or that. But Mike, did you know? Like, I don't watch CNN, but if you watch like the thing on Venezuela, they're like, people are starving to death and this or that, and people are rummaging through garbage, and then they switched over to all these protests where people don't look like they're skinny as heck. Everybody's got a cell phone, and they're like laughing, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a tale of two cities. That's what it is, right? I mean, and this is in the cities. Like if you live in the outskirts of Venezuela, I don't know, I'm not from Venezuela, but don't they grow vegetables in the outskirts of Venezuela? I mean, they have the ability to, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of agriculture in Venezuela. And again, it's selective editing. There are pro-Maduro demonstrations taking place in the streets of Caracas that are just as large as the ones we're being told are anti-Maduro.
Yeah, because remember, they're eating the zoo animals. They brought that out. I mean, yeah, maybe somebody broke into the zoo and ate a zoo, but I'm saying, and you see pictures of food off the, not on the store shelves, but I'm saying if everybody's starving to death, all these people were able to go out and protest with cell phones. A lot of them are laughing and having a good old time. If you watch the videos, even on CNN, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of propaganda going on. I mean, does Venezuela have problems? Hell yes. Do we have problems? Hell yes. But like I said, Maduro was the elected president of the country, not Guaido, who 80% of the Venezuelans never even heard of the guy because he's a puppet. And Mike, by the way, he went to George Washington University, and he also was an underling for somebody who worked for the IMF. Did you know that?
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, he's definitely a globalist puppet. No question about it. He's, he basically screams, U.S. puppet rule.
But that's about it. That's all I wanted to say, Mike. Have a good rest of the show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. We got another caller waiting on the line, but I'm going to wait until after the commercial break here. So the situation in Venezuela is probably going to turn into another Vietnam. And part of the reason is simply the fact that China is very heavily invested in Venezuela. They've got millions and millions in investments. They're not just going to walk away from that and let a new U.S. puppet government simply nationalize their assets. So Beijing is reaffirming it maintains normal state-to-state relations and cooperation with Venezuela, and they've got billions of dollars in credit on the line. So non-interference is simply not an option for China. So we could be looking at a U.S.-China proxy war in Venezuela. And that would be really, really serious. It's almost eerie how prescient James Cameron was about this in Avatar, where the commander, the one with the scars on his face, is out there saying, Venezuela, that was some mean bush. And back then, Venezuela? What's going on in Venezuela? Now, Venezuela's a hotspot. So anyway, over at TRNN, Dimitri Lascaris was reporting from the ground in Caracas about Saturday's pro- and anti-government marches, highlighting that they're peaceful and of equal size. And apparently the anti-Maduro protests are shrinking. They're not getting as many people out there as they used to. Okay, got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back with another phone call.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight. Women and children.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I'm just calling kind of in response to the gentleman who called right before Dustin, who was talking about the deep state and the CIA and all that. And I want to remind everybody, we're wondering why Trump has been so completely pliant and is pissed backwards on virtually everything from getting out of Syria, getting out of Afghanistan, recognizing Jerusalem, more money to all the stuff that he's doing, more money to Israel, all that stuff. And remember that Obama, one of the very first things that he did was to give every single one of all of the NSA and the CIA's intercepts, raw and unfettered, to Israel.
Yes.
And then you think back and you remember that he has been bailed out, Trump that is, in New York real estate. You know, he's been bankrupt or near bankrupt several times and has been bailed out by a lot of Goldman Sachs type New York bankers several times. He used to pal around with, and as a matter of fact, he described him as his mentor. Remember Roy Cohn?
Yes.
Roy Cohn, the McCarthy's hitman, really, legal hitman, but horrible guy, ardent Zionist, gay guy, by the way, and Trump looked at him as his mentor, and he was a real bare knuckle, worse than bare knuckle, brass knuckle type of guy, Roy Cohn. I mean, on and on. Then you look at the Kushner thing and all that. This guy is totally owned. You look at the fact that he also Soros bailed him out once, and then look how much Adelson owns him.
Yeah.
And when you put it all together, this guy, I mean, Trump is bad news, and he's more owned by Israel than he is by the several scores of millions of voters who voted for him here. So, but the deep state, you can draw a line. Remember the whole thing with Flynn that nobody talks about. The deep state was talking about it, and that was trying to get cooperation from the Russians on the behalf of Israel. I mean, that's covered up by the press. They don't even talk about that. Now they're talking about he can't get out of Syria because that would threaten Israel. I mean, he wants to stay in Iraq because we need to keep an eye on Iran. Well, who's that for? It's all for Israel. Anyways, I can't handle one. The deep state is Israel. It's the bankers. So, whatever.
Yep.
And they own Hillary too.
It's the money junkies, and it's a real argument about why society should not allow people to become too wealthy, because then they start taking it upon themselves to basically try and warp the nation to their own purposes. And of course, that's bad for the nation. It's bad for the people.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I don't think anybody. You could have just about every dream come true for with a state of $50 million, right? Today's money. And you could buy a politician here or there, but you couldn't buy the whole government. But you sure can the way Soros and Adelson and Milstein and all these other guys have been doing and utterly own us. And that's why we haven't been following our own foreign policy for 30, 40 years. We're operating on behalf of Israel, not on behalf of the United States. So, whatever. But if you look at these, the stuff from the Al Jazeera's release of that the Israeli lobby thing, you see that all these guys, these lobbies, how they get around the election laws. They hand out credit cards and they own everybody. And the Mossad and the Department of Strategic Affairs operates in the United States smearing anybody who's against them. Character assassination, real assassination too, I'm sure. And they operate with impunity. Our law enforcement agencies, our deep state, looks the other way.
Yep.
So, there's a reason why we're in such deep crap, everybody. It's because our country is not run by our country.
No, we have a puppet government. We have a Vichy government that rules this nation on behalf of another foreign nation. It's no different than when France fell to the Nazis and they put in a French government that was subservient to Germany. We've got the same thing here in the United States. I mean, look at that ridiculous push for these anti-BDS laws, which fly right in the face of the First Amendment, and yet they've got support. I think 26 states have already voted them through. They're considering a national one. Actually, they're backing off on that one because they understand it will never survive a Supreme Court test. But yeah, I mean, they're trying to criminalize any criticism of Israel. They're trying, just like the way they've criminalized questioning the Orthodox account of the history of World War II.
Mike, they've been hurling the anti-Semite thing and at people for years. It's really losing its effect because they've done it so much and it's such crap anyways. But now, like you say, since that doesn't work anymore, now they've gone to it's like a little harder power. Now they're trying to criminalize it, and 26 states has already passed. Now nobody would pass that, no legislator except that were owned. So 26 state legislatures have voted that into law, where you can be fined up to $1 million for participating in BDS, up to $1 million. In South Carolina, it's a criminal thing. 13 more states are pending. Then there's the Senate Bill 1. They tried it before. They tried it even with the what was that, Pacific Rim, whatever it was, putting in a bunch of laws in there saying or rules that if you couldn't boycott Israel, that Trump, to his credit, was against. But they'll just keep coming back, and they will. I mean, the laws mean nothing, and the laws work for them and against us.
Yes.
And by the way, how do you get so rich? Because you know what? You control the laws. You know, nobody
Yes.
ever goes. They never go to jail. The only person that ever went to jail was Bernie Madoff, and that's because he stole from the wrong people.
Yes.
And believe me, if it had been one of us, there's tons of these guys that get away with that stuff. But at any rate, that's what I had to say, and it's a sad day. But everybody should see that Al Jazeera documentary on the Israeli lobby and how these people are operating, and they're being listen. A lot of American Jews are acquiescent to this. They're either quiet and allowing everybody to be shouted down and these laws to pass, or they're actively participating. Now, obviously, some aren't, but there's a hell of a lot of people who are actively participating or actively looking the other way and taking advantage of what they can on that. So,
well, part of the problem is that in the Jewish religion, you're not allowed to criticize other Jews, and that prohibition keeps a lot of Jewish people silent when they know in their hearts they should protest. And actually, support for Israel among American Jews is notably in decline, and I think that's because Americans, Jewish people, are understanding that it is the actions of the government of Israel that are actually making the world more dangerous to be Jewish in.
Well, to be silent in the face of letting this small cabal of fascist, supremacists take control of our government and make it illegal, subverting our Bill of Rights. To be silent or acquiescent is total treasonous cowardice, in my opinion. The people who are silent are cowards, and it's a pathology. The people who are acquiescent, they're a fifth column, and they need to be jailed. So, I mean, there's nothing different from that in Vidkun Quisling in Norway, or Pierre Laval in France, or look up what fifth column means, people. It's people working on behalf of somebody. In World War II, they said it was French people working on behalf of the Nazi Germany, or Norwegians working on behalf of the Nazi Germany. In this case, it's Americans working on behalf of a foreign country, taking flat out instructions from them and doing their bidding against American laws and subverting the rights of American citizens. And it has to be dealt with. And the hell with the people who are silent about it, and they're just as bad. So there we go.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all of that information. Thank you very much for the phone call, and you're absolutely right. It is a real mess, and it's been going on for a very, very long time. I mean, at least all the way back to World War I. And we know how Harry Truman was being controlled by the Zionists, during the creation of Israel. So, they've got influence, they've got money, they've got political power. They play the game very well. What can I tell you?
When you can control the banks and control the money supply, you can control everything. They can do a 5-second print run and create enough money to pay off every politician in the world, buy every corporation in the world. And basically that's what they've done.
Yes.
So that's why we're where we're at. But I got to roll, Mike. Thanks very much for letting me vent.
All right. Well, happy venting there, and we're going to let you go. So the phone lines are empty again. Getting on back down to Venezuela, apparently there are other players that are trying to basically talk to the two sides, Maduro and Guaido, and get them to common terms. Obviously, the United States does not want that to happen, and the U.S. is rejecting Mexico, Uruguay, and Vatican mediation efforts to keep Maduro in power. And apparently the U.S. government last Thursday warned Maduro there would be consequences for what it called egregious acts of intimidation against Guaido. So, according to Reuters, the U.S. wants Venezuela's oil company PDVSA and its subsidiary Citgo to remain viable in wake of new sanctions that were imposed earlier this week. So they're definitely down there meddling. I think this definitely comes under the heading of meddling with a capital M here. Now, Maduro has proposed early parliamentary elections in Venezuela, and basically elections specifically for the National Assembly, which is the legislative body dominated by the opposition and led by Juan Guaido, who has declared himself interim president not too long ago. So Guaido's coup received immediate support from the United States and its allies in Latin America and Europe, while Russia, Mexico, China, and other countries urged not to interfere with the domestic situation in the country. And of course, all this turmoil is coming as Venezuela's economy has been suffering from decades of economic war here. Now, over in the European Union, you'll remember that they issued an ultimatum that Maduro had to have full elections, including for his own office, within 8 days, or the European Union would officially recognize Guaido as the president of Venezuela. Well, they ran into a little roadblock. Italy vetoed it. When it came up for a vote at the European Parliament, Italy vetoed it. Now, the corporate media is making a big deal of all these European nations who are supporting Guaido, but the fact is it's not official, and it's not an official EU endorsement here. Now, Hawaii's Tulsi Gabbard came on out very direct, saying the United States needs to stay out of Venezuela. Let the Venezuelan people determine their future. We don't want other countries to choose our leaders, so we have to stop trying to choose theirs. Now, that's about as unambiguous and unequivocal, and didn't have any of the "yeah, Maduro's an evil monster, but" modifiers that other officials, including Bernie Sanders, have been prefacing their feeble objections to Trump's campaign to topple the Venezuelan government with. And, of course, all of the usual war pundits, including the Washington Post's most reliable military-industrial complex fluffer, Josh Rogan, they all jumped all over Tulsi Gabbard. In fact, Rogan went on basically implying that there was some meaning to the fact that Tulsi Gabbard shares the same foreign policy position as Russia and the Assad regime. In fact, NBC News is already out there trying to claim that Tulsi Gabbard is being supported by the Russians. And again, that's the corporate media. All right, we're going to take a phone call here. Mike in Minnesota. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm a little concerned that our alternative news sources haven't really picked up on the turning of the spotlight by mainstream media concerning this governor of Virginia. You know, they after he said what he said concerning post-birth abortions, that was almost like entirely scrubbed from the internet. Nobody seems to have said anything about what he said after we've got the pictures up.
Yes.
Just there was a total distraction, and I can't find out why. I'm trying to understand how come any of our alternative media sources aren't picking up on this.
Well, we've been talking about it. We were talking about it with one of our callers a little bit earlier in the show. And it's like I said, I view the killing of a newborn baby as being far more serious than blackface and a KKK robe that were being worn apparently as, costumes.
Yes, exactly. I just, essentially, the alternative media should just be pounding this at mainstream media. This is really what the guy felt. And this is really all of a sudden
Mike,
pictures were and stuff.
Yeah, Mike, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And apparently, middle of last week, a bipartisan group of 8 House lawmakers introduced 2 bills to make it more difficult for the Trump administration to withdraw troops from Syria and South Korea. Now, the bills were introduced by freshman representatives Tom Malinowski and Van Taylor. and basically would limit the funds the administration may use to transport the troops out of the country and bring them back home or someplace else. Of course, this is largely symbolic because you'd have to have, first of all, a full floor vote. Then you would have to have the Senate vote on the same bill and agree with it. Then it would have to be signed by the president. And that's just not going to happen. But it is rather amazing to see this Congress, which is normally so rancorous across the aisle. When it comes to the wars, boy, are they bipartisan then. Near unanimous here. Okay, we are now seeing new propaganda, and this is probably coming on out in support of Trump's decision to send more troops into Iraq to watch Iran. This came out of the Jerusalem Post, claiming that members of Hashd al-Sha'abi, the Iranian-backed Shiite militias in Iraq, have been warning U.S. troops near Mosul against provocations. This was in a video posted over the weekend. And apparently U.S. troops on patrol in eastern Mosul were confronted by gunmen who monitored their movements and blocked their movement by placing an armored jeep across a road. And again, the timing, I don't think, is a coincidence here. Story out of Middle East Monitor, U.S. forces returned to Baghdad, and Iraqis in the capital are saying U.S. Army forces have been walking around the city accompanied by the Iraqi army. Now, U.S. forces withdrew from the country in 2011 following an agreement with the Iraqi government, but maintained specific forces in special military positions. But now it looks like they're just starting to basically go anywhere they want in the country here. And again, what we reported before, this is out of antiwar.com, Trump is out there saying, he was during a Sunday interview on CBS, Trump insisted the U.S. has an incredible base in Iraq after years of work and might as well keep it, and basically said troops could be staying more or less forever, which I'm sure is not something the government of Iraq is comfortable with. And his justification for this, beyond might as well, was that it's right next to Iran. And Trump claimed Iran is the cause of every single major difficulty in the Middle East, and keeping U.S. troops in Iraq would allow them to watch Iran. And it was back to that old canard that, if Iran could be looking to do nuclear weapons or other things, we're going to know it before they do. Now, Iran is still fully compliant with the P5+1 agreement. The IAEA is in there running inspections all the time. Iran is not doing anything it's not supposed to be doing. The reason Trump had his argument with the intelligence chiefs the other day is they also said they can't see any indication that Iran is getting ready to produce any kind of nuclear weapons. Iran has not initiated a war of conquest against another nation in over 200 years. It is not their nature. Got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1 877-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Apparently, over the weekend, U.S. warplanes attacked a Syrian military position along the border with Iraq at Abu Kamal. Syrian state media reported the attack as U.S. aggression, which, yeah, that was pretty aggressive. And reportedly, 2 soldiers were wounded and a stationary artillery piece destroyed. Now, exactly how this came about is uncertain. The U.S.-led coalition claimed it involved their inherent right to self-defense and that some partner forces were fired upon by the artillery. Now, that's a very non-specific allegation, and I have a hunch that maybe just somebody made a mistake and they don't want to own up to it here. Over in Great Britain, remember this big stink over the so-called integrity initiative? It was being billed as, you know, we're going to make sure the news is truthful. And it turned out to be a propaganda factory, linked to Britain's intelligence services. And as of right now, as of today, the Integrity Initiative has wiped its website and locked its Twitter account over what they're calling an investigation into the theft of data. And that was because anonymous hackers, or the anonymous hacking group, got in there and reduced new documents targeting Russia as supposedly the greatest threat to world peace, based on claims that it is the country most likely to use nuclear weapons. I would disagree with that assessment. The country most likely to use nuclear weapons is the United States, because they've already done it. In fact, with all this talk about Russia's nukes and China's nukes and Iran's nukes and Iraq's nukes, the only nation on earth to ever actually use nuclear weapons of mass destruction on the civilians of another country is the United States. So anyway, these released documents that were hacked on out from the Integrity Initiative reveal more of the disinformation campaign used to justify NATO preparations for war with Russia, including the use of nuclear weapons, which I'm sure is making everybody who lives in Europe very, very nervous. Anyway. Meanwhile, up in Afghanistan, the Pentagon has a ghost soldiers problem. Now, since 2002, billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars have been being spent rebuilding Afghanistan after decades of war. And a big chunk of that money pays Afghan soldiers and police. But it's turning out a lot of those troops don't actually exist. So somebody's skimming that money off. There are false claims of troops. Oh, we need money to pay them. And the Inspector General watching over the U.S. taxpayers, billions spent on Afghanistan, John Sopko, is apparently conducting an investigation. All right, over in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu is dealing with a bunch of difficulties. The gap in the polls is virtually non-existent now between him and Benny Gantz. It's within the margin of error, so at this point it could go anywhere. The state prosecutor is refusing Netanyahu's request to delay the indictment for corruption until after the April election. And insiders are saying that the indictment is solid and there will, in fact, be a conviction. But Netanyahu is out there basically talking the war party. And he said that the general election campaign would not stop the government from Israel from bombing the Gaza Strip or Iran. So Netanyahu is out there saying, if calm is not maintained in Gaza, Israel will not hesitate to move against it even during the election period. I also have a message to the tyrants in Tehran. Israel will continue moving overtly to protect its future. Now, the Israeli occupation authorities continue to fear any Palestinian retaliation for the Israeli Defense Forces' ongoing aggression and killing of unarmed demonstrators taking part in the Great March of Return. So basically what Netanyahu is saying, we're going to go on shooting your protesters. Even though they don't present a threat of physical harm to our soldiers, we're going to go on shooting at them and killing them and crippling them. And if you dare take action back against us, we're going to send the bombers in. Another story, this one out of the Times of Israel, talking about the coming indictment. And it's basically quoting Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit, saying that the conviction is guaranteed and that the Prime Minister must be indicted for bribery. And Mandelblit is expected to publish his conclusions on the 3 cases within the next few weeks, having informed Netanyahu's lawyers last week that he has rejected the Prime Minister's demand that any decisions to indict be postponed. So that's going to get very, very tense. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Okay, as you know, last week, Israel basically kicked out the observer force in the West Bank. And a lot of people are very concerned that there's going to be military action against Hebron, which has a population of 200,000 Palestinians. The United Nations says Secretary General Antonio Guterres hopes an agreement can be reached to protect the Palestinians in the West Bank after Israel suspended the mandate of an international observation mission. And Guterres said he was grateful to the 5 countries that contributed to conflict prevention and the protection of Palestinians under the temporary international presence in Hebron for the past 22 years. And unfortunately, when you hear about all the attacks by the settlers on the Palestinians, the physical attacks, the attacks on their homes, the attacks on their farmlands, they weren't really doing that good a job. But last Friday, the TIPH countries, Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, Italy, and Turkey, issued a statement condemning the Israel government's unilateral decision not to extend the observer forces mission in the Flashpoint city. And one of the things that may be going on, this is out of Middle East Monitor, is apparently Israeli Tourism Minister Yariv Levin has revealed that the goal of the upcoming Israeli government is to settle an additional 1 million Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank. This was reported in Quds Press. And the Arabic site said Israeli news website 0404 revealed that Levin made his remarks during a meeting with the chairman of Samaria Regional Council, Yossi Dagan, in the occupied West Bank. And apparently in this meeting they agreed on reinforcing settlement, accelerating building, and creating a situation where settlement does not grow but develop very fast to meet the needs of the settlers and the developing settlement. All of this, of course, is completely illegal under international law. Okay. Up in Europe, there's been an internal EU report. It was put together by EU ambassadors in Jerusalem and Ramallah, and basically concludes that Israel imposes systematic legal discrimination on Palestinians. Well, that was pretty much coded into law with the nation-state law. Apparently, this confidential diplomat's report was published last July before the nation-state law was put on out there. But supposedly was intended to serve as input for Brussels and the EU in forming their Middle East policy. Okay. Israel has begun construction of another Gaza barrier. They want to strengthen that fence along the Gaza Strip. And it's going to stand 6 meters tall off the ground. And it's basically the pretext for building it is to prevent the infiltration of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip into Israel. And apparently the work began last Thursday. Don't hear any screams from Nancy Pelosi about this wall being immoral, do you? Well, as you know, we're coming up here in on the Eurovision Song Contest, which is scheduled for May, and over 60 international non-governmental organizations have added their voices in protest against the plan to hold the finals of the Eurovision Song Contest in Tel Aviv. And this is now an international campaign by civil society groups who demand the event be moved. And the concern is that Israel basically captured the Eurovision. There were allegations of manufactured voting last year for Israel to win it. They're trying to use Eurovision to polish up their image, to look better to the world, to basically say there's more to Israel than just the Palestinian conflict. But a lot of people are saying, no, it's inappropriate to have it there. Early this week, 50 artists urged the BBC to boycott the Eurovision, citing Israel's systematic violation of Palestinian human rights. The BBC said they declined, saying it was not appropriate for individuals to politicize the corporation's participation in the event. So BBC caved on that one here. Okay, getting into our domestic politics here. A lot of people are up in arms over the possible independent presidential campaign of Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. Basically came on out there talking about how he'll try for the White House in 2020 as an independent candidate. And he basically says that we need a moderate, that the Democrats have become the party of radical leftism. The GOP has become the party of the war hawks, and he says there needs to be a moderate campaign. And apparently he's been working on this for several months, laying the groundwork, having polls come on out. He's certainly got the name value. He's certainly got the name value. But Democrats are very concerned because if Schultz ran as an independent, he could basically grab between 10 and 20% of the vote, mostly from other Democrat voters. So Democrats across the country are exploding in rage at the mere prospect of Schultz running. And Schultz, all I can say is stay out of small airplanes and make sure you're wearing your Kevlar here. Over in the Roger Stone case, U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson is considering ordering a gag order, and apparently is very concerned at Roger Stone getting on out there, his public comments, all the interviews that he's getting, and she's basically waiting for the attorneys on both sides to come in with their opinions, but she's thinking about putting a gag order, so we're not going to get to hear what's going on over there. Over in Pennsylvania, they've had a replay of what happened in Texas a couple of weeks ago. Pennsylvania State Representative Darrell Metcalf called on the state Wednesday to purge 11,198 non-citizen voters who were confirmed as registered to vote, even though they're not eligible. So that basically Pennsylvania identified almost 12,000 registered non-citizen voters. This is a national scandal. And the Democrats are using these illegal immigrant voters to shift elections. That's what happened out in California. The illegals were sent into districts that were just slightly red, were sent in enough numbers to just shift them just slightly blue. And we saw California just lose all kinds of GOP House seats. California's traditionally been a GOP stronghold. Not anymore. Not anymore. And I'm sure there are probably going to be Democratic lawyers heading over for Pennsylvania saying, "Oh, no, you can't deregister them. That's racist. You know, everybody in this country should have a right to vote." Well, that's not the way it works. Now, if you want to change the requirements to vote as embedded in the Constitution, that will take a constitutional amendment. But our election system has just become this horrible joke. It's a laughing stock around the world. How wide open it is to fraud, how abused it is, how corrupt it's become. Now, one of the things that Trump promised he was going to do when he became president was look into fixing the election system, and he sure dropped the ball on that one. All righty. Let's talk about some economic news now. China's state-run Global Times last week applauded the launch of a European system to evade U.S. sanctions on Iran. They basically set up their own payment system. And China is pleased by the launch of the system. It's pleased by the damage it could inflict upon U.S. sanctions against China, Venezuela, North Korea, and other countries. And the Chinese saluted France, Germany, and Britain for moving toward a day when the U.S. dollar is no longer the world's dominant currency, and perhaps Chinese money will take its place, which a lot of experts are predicting, that ultimately the yuan is going to be the dominant currency. And we all saw this coming. When the United States weaponized the dollar, and I think we just had an earthquake. Just a little one. Anyway, when the U.S. weaponized the dollar, they weaponized that SWIFT system in order to basically use the dollar as a club on other countries. And they started sanctioning here and sanctioning there, and it was inevitable. The rest of the world would going to reform economically around that dollar to take that power away. All righty. Apparently, Venezuela is concerned about being able to hang on to its gold inside its own country, looking at a pending U.S. invasion. They probably remember what happened over in Libya, where following the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, the gold that was supposed to back the gold dinar left Libya, and nobody's really sure where it went. So apparently Venezuela has begun shipping 18 tons of gold to the United Arab Emirates. That's about 11% of Venezuela's current gold reserves, and follows the export last year of $900 million worth of unrefined gold to the UAE and Turkey. Meanwhile, of course, Great Britain is still hanging on to Venezuela's gold, which is actually causing a lot of people to say, we're not sure we can trust the Bank of England any longer if they're going to play games like this. Now, earlier I was talking about this story where the U.S. has said they want Venezuela's state-owned oil company and its subsidiary Citgo to remain viable during the transition. That may take a little bit of help because Citgo, which, by the way, refines 5% of the gasoline we use here in the United States, is looking at bankruptcy. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting in order to protect its operations, Citgo Petroleum is considering various options. Now, Citgo is among the largest refiners in the United States and weighing its options. What is it going to do as the U.S. starts to meddle in Venezuela? And anybody who's doing business across that border, inside Venezuela or with Venezuela, ought to be having some strategy meetings right now. How is this all going to impact us? Okay, apparently, roughly $145 million worth of cryptocurrency funds are frozen in the cold wallet of a Canadian cryptocurrency exchange portal after the death of its owner. And apparently, he was the only one who had the password. And so they don't know what they're going to be able to do about that. But this is from Quadriga CX. All right, we'll be back right after these commercials.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Now, General Motors will be laying off at least 4,000 of its white-collar workers in Canada and America, most of them in the U.S., starting next week. And the layoffs are just a small component of the corporation's mass layoff scheme of 14,700 workers in North America, including at least 3,300 factory workers. Meanwhile, GM is ramping up production of its electric cars in China. So remember when there was the automotive bailout and all these car companies got all this taxpayer money? Well, there's gratitude for you. And by the way, as a footnote, car makers are not having a good time at the start of 2019. It's doing just as bad as it was 2018. And the U.S. auto sales are described as abysmal. Okay, we're going to take a phone call from Mike in Kentucky. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I think you said you felt an earthquake there in Hawaii, huh? Somebody told me you tripped over a volcano. I was just wondering.
Well,
did you, wait a minute, did you crack a toe? Oh, good. Okay, sorry.
Groan.
Did you? Oh, sorry. So you think that was the rumbling there of?
Well, I just felt the building sway, and I don't know. It may have been a big truck, but to me, it felt like there was a quake. I'm not seeing it on the USGS site yet, but sometimes it can take them a while to get these things up. So
little tiny ones, yeah, and it could have been a dump truck. I mean, the trash truck down the street dropped the dumpster a little hard.
Well, maybe, but there was definitely a sway here, and I'm going to be taking a good look at this. And
well,
yeah,
an interesting when they don't detect stuff. What the heck could it be?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the military are digging a tunnel through the middle of the island. They do like to bore down.
That's entirely possible. I had a local person kept telling me they were aggravated as they could be because they kept hearing these low hum, and I said, well, could be the factory's installed some kind of new, ventilation system down at the plastics factory, and it's creating a low frequency rumble or something like that. You just don't know unless you get somebody with a spectrum analyzer to try to find it. But now there's all kinds of rumors, like you're saying, of people, boring machines running tunnels underneath of all over the place.
Well, I mean, there's no rumors. I mean, it's no secret. The military, because we are such a small island, they like to dig down. They actually had an underground hangar to assemble warplanes with during World War II. That's still out there. There's the whole Red Hill complex.
Yeah, the movie Snowden depicts one of these massive World War II underground complexes where the servers were at that he was using, I guess. But great place to put them. I guess they're less prone to getting zapped by electromagnetic pulse or cosmic rays that supposedly we're experiencing more of. And there's that whole Svensmark controversy about whether or not terpenes from not deciduous, what are they called? Alpine evergreen type trees put off these terpenes that may be seeds for clouds when they get hit by cosmic rays. Have you studied that?
CERN did an experiment where they showed that cosmic rays do trigger cloud formation and doesn't even require the terpenes. And of course, when they published the study, they deleted the section where it said, this affects global warming this way, because obviously more clouds mean less warming.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know I went a little sideways there, but I just thought I'd throw that out there and I could use, if anybody knows how to contact me, I've called in a lot of shows for years and promoted Republic Broadcasting every which way I could in my area, out to a whopping, 10 or 11,000 people, but over here in northeastern Kentucky. But anybody that has kind of a document I need, a stylized document, could send me an example, a PDF. I need a motion to suspend or extend a notice of appeal for an FCC action they've got on us. They've really targeted me. I try to go to the local library to look it up because every computer I use hangs up when I try to look at, some of this stuff. And the computer I had checked out crashed, and they wouldn't let me check out another one because it still showed me logged in. So,
well, you're just having a terrible time.
I'm having a fun time. Yeah, I've got like the 28th, I need to get something before the commission and the D.C. Court of Appeals. So if anybody knows any communication lawyers that are twiddling their thumbs and would like to send me something under the table, I can file it. And what I've heard is due to tort reform, no lawyers want to fool with anything because the loser has to pay. So if I'm already $144,000 in a hole, I figure another $500 or $1,000 to file this appeal. What the heck,
Well, I wish you luck, and I wish you luck with whatever the FCC is doing to you. But we've got to take another break here for commercials.
I know.
Thank you very much. We're going to let you go. Bye. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com, educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221, or go to the website, angioprim.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And just trying to do too many things here at the same time, as I always do. All right, now, we're talking about the economic news. And as one of our callers mentioned previously on the show, the corporate media are experiencing record layoffs. And the reason is very simple. Nobody likes a liar. The American people's opinion of the corporate media is very low. They have lost all trust and confidence in the corporate media. And the more extreme and outrageous the lies become, the worse the problem is going to get. And the corporate backers of the corporate media, they're starting to feel the economic pinch. And so they're ordering layoffs. You know, apparently over in at Vice, following the layoffs at BuzzFeed, the Huffington Post, Gannett, and Verizon, Vice Media is laying off 10% of their staff. saying that they want to shift their focus to film and TV. So the cuts will involve about 250 people and are part of new CEO Nancy Dubuc's strategic plan to cut back on spending and achieve profitability. And the cuts are going to be distributed across all departments at every level, 10% of the company workforce. Okay, now here's a very interesting story, and it came out of Zero Hedge, and it says that investors are rushing to pull money out of U.S. stocks. And they're talking about last December, which was the worst for stocks since the Great Depression. Now, obviously, the market enjoyed a rebound during January. It was the best January return since 1987. Trump immediately gone on out tweeting about it. Hey, look what I did here. Alrighty, now, apparently the Democrats are working on a new 2019 Department of Homeland Security spending bill that basically opens the border to migrants. Now, the draft budget adds $1.75 billion in extra border spending to President Donald Trump's $58.7 billion budget request for the Department of Homeland Security. But the Democrats' draft bill does not include any funding for the wall. And it uses the extra money to help migrants bypass border protections and then win jobs in the U.S. labor market, a clear Title VIII violation. So Nancy Pelosi is still out there saying not $1 for a wall, not $1 for a wall, which means when we come up on the 15th, Trump is either going to have to declare a national emergency and build the wall, or we're going to see another government shutdown. Now, again, there is some buzz that in tomorrow's State of the Union speech, he's going to make an announcement about the border wall. We'll just have to wait to see what he's going to say. But, you know, the Democrats are absolutely in lockstep. They want those borders open. They want those illegals pouring into the country because those are going to be Democratic voters, even though they're not eligible to vote. The Democratic Party has basically gone outlaw, is what's going on here. Now, a conservative think tank, the Center for Immigration Studies, has estimated that each single illegal immigrant costs the United States $82,000 over the course of their lifetime. And that's a lot of money. And the new figure by the Center for Immigration Studies estimates what it takes to protect the border, educate, house, and feed, and provide medical treatment to illegal immigrants, and basically makes the assumption that the vast majority will spend a lifetime on various welfare programs, which is accurate. Now, let's take a look back to this study that was done by Yale and MIT, which basically, this paper, led by Mohammed M. Fazal Zarandi, a researcher at Yale and MIT, estimates there are 22.1 million illegal immigrants in the United States. And apparently did a lot of demographic research looking at the inflows and outflows of immigrants. And they came out with a range. The 22 isn't a million. It could be as high as 29 million. But let's go with the $22.1 million, and let's do a simple calculation. 22 million illegal immigrants at a lifetime cost of $82,000 each comes on out to $1,804 billion. That's what it's costing this nation. That is a lot of money. Now, out in California, there's now a crackdown on businesses that deal in what's called birth tourism. And apparently there were these businesses that literally were contacting pregnant women who wanted to come to this country and coaching them on when to get there to make sure their babies were delivered on our soil. So federal authorities last Thursday charged 19 people in the first major crackdown on the birth tourism. It is such a racket out there. It is such a racket. I'm surprised that they were doing in California, I mean, with Sanctuary City and everything, but the feds are trying to basically put a stop onto it. Meanwhile, the Pentagon is getting ready to deploy another 3,750 troops to the Mexican border. And we're hearing something like 30,000 Hondurans are now making their way to the southern border, and apparently there's yet another caravan forming up as well. So this is a crisis, and I think Trump has every right to declare a national emergency and a threat to the nation. Now, according to the Department of Defense, the military could build that wall, build a fence just all the way across from the Rio Grande to San Diego without Trump having to declare a national emergency. But I got to tell you, something's got to be done. Something has to be done about this. And again, I'm not being racist or anything. I'm just looking at the hard realities of what all this unrestricted immigration is doing to our economy, to our public health, to our election system. And again, if somebody wants to be a U.S. citizen and they come in through the legal process and they get their green card and they become a naturalized U.S. citizen, good for you. Welcome to our country. I hope we're not a disappointment. But this attitude that we're seeing from people like Nancy Pelosi, that just stepping over the border is all it takes to come on in and get free stuff and get registered to vote, it's out of control. It is an out of control situation. And Trump, if Trump does not take care of this, he's definitely a one-term president. Because this is a major issue he campaigned on. All righty. Now, over in Finland, as you know, a while back, they started a program to basically pay the migrants to go back home. And apparently, asylum seekers who are leaving Finland can receive up to 5,000 euros in cash or subsidies in what the Migration Service has dubbed the cheapest option. See, if you go on back to that $1 trillion figure I mentioned before, Finland has realized that simply paying for these people to go back to their own home is less expensive than letting them stay in the country. And apparently, the program was working, but the number of people volunteering for it has dropped. So Finland is going to double the financial aid to rejected asylum seekers who volunteer to leave the country. So, and basically, the Migration Service officer, Migri Tarja Rantala, said, we want to encourage them to go home. There are thousands of people in the country with rejected asylum applications. They don't have a residence permit, and supporting them is becoming expensive. So Finland's got the right idea. Just pay them to go back home. Now, as you know, we're coming up on the final denouement, if you will, of Brexit. And the Remainers are still out there desperate to find some way to derail it, to keep Great Britain as part of the European Union, basically keep them enslaved to the European Central Bank and to Brussels. But apparently, over in Italy, things are getting a little tense out there. And apparently, according to this economist named Bootle, he's saying that Italy could literally crash out of the euro. And that, of course, would rock the European Union to its foundations. Now, the European economy is not doing very good. Well, the global economy is not doing very good. Their growth rate is slowing. And Italy and, frankly, a lot of the other countries are getting a little fed up with Brussels' overbearing regulatory burden. Some of it which is really silly. I mean, the EU's got rules for, what size produce must be in the produce section shelves. Anyway. Alrighty, over in South Dakota, if you are a gun lover, good news. South Dakota is now the 14th state to pass constitutional carry. Oklahoma is likely to join very, very soon. Governor Fallin vetoed constitutional carry in Oklahoma in 2018, but now Oklahoma has a new governor, and it looks like the Oklahoma legislature is going to pass the bill. So they've got constitutional carry in those states, and I'm sure the gun grabbers are going to be out there saying, oh, quick, we've got to get a patsy to shoot up a school there or something. Get this turned around here. So let's get on down to this governor in Virginia. And first of all, the good news, that bill that would have authorized literally post-birth abortion, it didn't even get out of committee. It's not going to the floor for a vote. It's basically dead on arrival. But what this governor said, Governor Ralph Northam, and this guy, before he became governor, he was a pediatric neurologist. He's a doctor. He's supposed to respect the sanctity of life. But apparently he is still being picketed by Virginia Democrats, or rather by pro-lifers, and he's being picketed by them to add to all of his troubles with that yearbook photo, and calls for his resignation. Now, one reason that Northam may have gone along with this is apparently when he decided to run for the governor of Virginia in 2017, Planned Parenthood donated nearly $2 million to his campaign. And basically, Northam campaigned on the right to an abortion, and I understand there are needs for abortion, but in the third trimester at the moment of birth, no, that's completely unacceptable. Now let's talk about that yearbook page. This is a page, probably you've already seen it by now on the news, was a page from the medical school yearbook where Ralph Northam basically studied. And apparently this photo was made public by an ex-classmate who got very angry about Northam's abortion remarks, as I'm sure so many of you did. So that's where the photo came from. Northam is now saying that while those photos are on the page with his picture, that he is neither of the individuals in the picture, which is a little hard to believe, but given how poor quality the picture is, you can't really tell. But that's basically what he's saying. He has admitted that he did wear blackface once for a Michael Jackson dance competition. But he's saying that the man in blackface on the yearbook photo and the man in the case, he's not either of those individuals. And that other caller was absolutely right. I mean, look at the media spotlight. Oh, they went to town on this. Oh, it's racism. It's the KKK. It's blackface. They're at the point right now where they're even criticizing the chimney sweeps in Mary Poppins because they're wearing blackface. No, they don't. It's soot. It's something that happens during the job. It's really gone completely over the top. But apparently, Northam is trying to rebuild his support base among Virginia Democrats. He is saying he is not going to resign, but there's definitely a firestorm around him. And he's basically lost support from virtually the entire state Democratic Party and key allies. And apparently he was being asked to resign only last Friday. Now, let's put a little perspective on this. This photo of these people in these costumes, and that's exactly what they were. This photo was taken 30 years ago. And I probably would not have chosen either costume 30 years ago. But it is getting rather ridiculous how people are being destroyed over things they did 30 years ago, which back then weren't that big a deal. And let's be honest about that. Now, I understand if you want to criticize somebody for something like racism today, go ahead and do it. But to go digging through somebody's past, just looking for things to be offended by, that's a very liberal thing to do. I mean, we've all lived our lives, and I'm sure that anybody digging through anybody else's background, you're going to find things which in today's sensibilities are highly questionable. And you can stand up and say, look, I found one. I'm offended. I'm offended. I've scored a victory here. But what that says about our national character is very dark. All right. We've got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
February is Heart Month. Every year for the month of February, to show our appreciation to Extendivite's faithful customers, we have a sale. If you would like to try Extendivite, now is the time to get a few months ahead and really give Extendivite the time to show you how it works. Most of Extendivite's long-term customers wait for this sale to stock up. People and doctors tell us about the unbelievable improvements that they have experienced in their overall health, not just the heart. Extendivite wants you to experience the power of these herbs. Get a 4-month supply for only $115 for either the capsules or tincture. Please take advantage of this once per year sale and get healthy for life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We've been talking about this terrible abortion law in New York that was passed and signed. An equally terrible, in fact, even slightly worse bill, which failed to get out of committee in Virginia. And now, apparently, Vermont is getting ready to come out with an abortion bill that says an abortion under any reason, at any time, And I mean, I'm surprised that Vermonters would go along with that. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What is the agenda here? And again, I don't know that the laws are really going to have that much of an effect. I can't imagine a woman carrying a baby for 9 months and then at the last second say, I want to get rid of it. Now, as that caller the other day called on in and said there could be a serious birth abnormality, those tend to show up much earlier in the pregnancy on the ultrasounds. So why all of a sudden this push to have an abortion right up to the moment of birth? And we know, obviously, Planned Parenthood is involved in this because they gave the Virginia governor $2 million for his campaign. So they've got to be looking at, and basically in his radio interview, he said, yeah, they were going to put the baby down and commence immediate organ harvesting. So Planned Parenthood is involved in this somehow. Going to make a fast buck here. Okay. Over in Eugene, Oregon, at the Cascade Middle School, there was this armed Antifa member got into a custody dispute when police showed up to escort the man off campus. Apparently, he just went completely nuts and tried to evade them. And apparently Landeros reached for a concealed handgun, and the situation went from bad to worse. So he was shot and killed right there. And I'd say in this case, yeah, that was definitely the right thing for the cops to do there. But apparently it's provoked a reaction from apparently other Antifa, because now incendiary devices have been found outside the Eugene Police Headquarters following that shooting. Now, getting on back to media double standards here. Remember the same media that told us, leave David Hogg alone, he's just a child and he's got a right to his opinion about guns and everything. That was the same media that just went after even younger children from Covington High School. They went after them for smirking. And they now have a lawyer. They're suing for slander. But it does show you that corporate media is very much not unbiased. They have a liberal axe to grind, if you will. Alrighty, so got to take a break for station identification. We have a caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're going to take a phone call from Scott in Dallas. Aloha, Scott. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, this call goes out to that caller that was needing some legal help. And if he will tune in Thursday and Friday nights to ruleoflawradio.com, at 8 o'clock Texas time, you can talk to Randy Kelton. It's a call-in show, too. And this is where we've been talking about, taking the law and using their own laws against them. He's actually working with a great appeals guy, too, now. We've been putting together a system. I told you about him about 2 years ago and get him on your show and stuff, and y'all were talking, but it never occurred, which is a shame because, it's kind of the one thing that I see a lot with the truth movement. A lot of people don't want to let other people onto the show to start spreading the information that people desperately need. And it just, I have my own YouTube channel. It got shut down. How many people do you think stepped up and invited me to come back onto a show? Only one, and that was the guy. He created a show after I got deleted and scrubbed from the internet because he was wanting to get me back on just to, hear what we had to say, because we're taking their own laws and using them against them. It's their code.
Okay, well,
But,
Scott, okay, give us the dates, the time, and the name of the show one more time.
It's ruleoflawradio.com, Thursday and Friday nights at 8 o'clock. It's a call-in show with Randy Kelton. And he's been a mentor of mine for over 5 years now. And he's done a lot of work in a lot of areas. And people probably heard of Eddie Craig through YouTube. He's on the same channel as, Randy Kelton on Rule of Law Radio. But yeah, knowledge is power. And once you start taking this and taking the fight back to these people, then you see they have no subject matter jurisdiction. Government is, basically government is mind control. Govern, control, meant of the mind. It's all mind control.
It's what they do. Anyway, Scott, need to let you go. Got more news I got to cover here. So thank you for the phone call, and I'll try and tune in. It has to be Friday night. So thank you for the call. We're going to let you go. All right, getting on back to the kids from Covington Catholic High School. Apparently, their lawyer has released a 14-minute video basically illustrating all the lies that came out of Nathan Phillips and the corporate media. And it's just very obvious. The corporate media, they had their agenda. Ooh, white kids, MAGA hats. We've got to demonize them, make them look bad. Oh, poor Nathan Phillips. He's a Vietnam veteran, and they're harassing him. And it was completely the opposite. And it led to this nationwide frenzy. And now the families of these kids are working hard to try and hold the media accountable. Over in Great Britain, there is a new concern being expressed that boys are falling behind at school academically. And apparently, according to Mary Curnock Cook, who was chief executive of UCAS until last year, said the problem is that attempts to help boys academically are always attacked by the feminists. and that talking about boosting the academic performance of boys is considered an unfashionable topic. And in fact, it's becoming normalized that the school should just focus on the girls and focus on the girls and focus on the girls and just leave the boys to wither there. So anyway, all right. Getting into corporate media here, computers anyway. Facebook and Twitter delete thousands of disinformation accounts without proof. This happened last Thursday, where they announced they'd taken down thousands of accounts they claim to be connected with attempted influence campaigns by Iran, Venezuela, and Russia. Apparently just because they thought it might be. They don't really have any proof. Facebook's head of cybersecurity policy, Nathaniel Gleicher, said in a blog post Thursday that the company had removed a total of 783 pages, groups, and accounts for engaging in coordinated, inauthentic behavior tied to Iran, 262 pages, 356 accounts, and 3 groups, as well as 162 accounts on Instagram. So the censorship is out there. Twitter, meanwhile, has banned 2,000 pro-Maduro Twitter accounts to support the demands for regime change. They want people going to Twitter to see, the anti-Maduro tweets, but they're banning the pro-Maduro accounts. That's meddling in the politics of a foreign nation. And again, Twitter is claiming, well, obviously these 2,000 accounts were part of a state, operation, was by Venezuela's government to conduct information operations against a foreign country, meaning us, the United States. Now, there's been an interesting little development. As you know, corporate social media rather, has come under a lot of criticism lately for all of this takedown and deplatforming and so-called fact-checking, where it turns out the fact-checkers have a built-in liberal bias. We know that the latest attempt to put censorship right on your device, NewsGuard, automatically greenlights all the corporate media and all the conservatives and red lists anybody who doesn't go along with the current status quo. But apparently over at Facebook, 2 of their 4 fact-checkers, Snopes and the Associated Press, have abruptly ended their fact-checking relationship. And basically, in a press release last Friday, Snopes said it had elected not to renew our partnership with Facebook while declining to reveal specifics. And apparently there was a report last December that the 2-year relationship between Facebook and its fact-checkers was in disarray. And I would imagine that part of the problem is with 4 different fact-checkers and each with their own agenda, there were probably a lot of arguments going on about, who was going to get red listed and who was not. Anyway, I don't use social media anymore. My wife is starting to. I have to have some lessons about that. Now, over in Russia, a company called Rostec, they're launching sales of Russia's new crypto phone, which is billed as being immune to hacking and wiretapping. And sales of the phone have started in Russia. Apparently the price of the device, it's not cheap. It's $1,200. But the phone is commercially available. And I imagine that probably the NSA are going to get very, very upset that there is yet another phone in the world that they can't break into, like the Huawei phones. Anyway. All right, let's talk about Kratom. As you know, the FDA wants to schedule Kratom which is a naturally occurring plant with analgesic properties. If you take enough of it, it's also psychoactive. And the National Institute on Drug Abuse is pointing out there have been a few deaths, but that was definitely deliberate overdose on the part of people who wanted to see flying pigs or something. So the biggest problem with Kratom, of course, is that it cuts into the money being made by the opiates. And so the FDA is caving into Big Pharma, and they're talking about banning it and scheduling it in order to protect Big Pharma profits. But there is a mounting pushback, quite a bit like when the FDA tried to schedule nanosilver or colloidal silver. And there was a public outcry, and the FDA said, oh, all right, you can have your nanosilver back. And we may see it here a little bit. Now, Claire has taken Kratom. It took her 3 months after her back accident to actually get to see a doctor. And the Kratom was the only thing we could actually get to deal with her pain. Now she's got other stuff that the doctor gave her. But it is very, very useful. And we had a caller who called in the other day talking about the Sackler family, who is getting incredibly rich pushing opiates on the American people. And there's now a lawsuit against Purdue Pharmaceutical and members of the Sackler family saying that patients on higher dosages of OxyContin for long periods were at increased risk of serious side effects, including addiction. Yet they continued to promote the high doses as they yielded the most profit. And so it's all about the money, and they want to go on selling the opioids, and that's why they're opposed to Kratom, or in fact they're opposed to any medication you can grow in your own backyard or make for yourself. The business model is to force you to buy everything that you need from some company somewhere. Drinking water, clothing, whatever. Now, the Environmental Protection Agency is refusing to limit 2 toxic chemicals that are found in drinking water. And apparently it's contaminating millions of Americans' tap water. And it's another failure by the Trump administration. So apparently the chemicals are known as PFOA and PFOS. They have been linked to kidney and testicular cancer, hypertension, and other ailments. Major chemical companies like 3M, as well as the Defense Department, would face billions of dollars in liability from aggressive efforts to regulate and clean up the chemical, which has contaminated groundwater near hundreds of military bases and chemical plants. But the Defense Department and 3M are getting off the hook. Getting back on to GMO, there was an article we ran it at whatreallyhappened.com. I don't have it included here, but it was basically saying that doctors across the United States are alarmed at the large, sudden increase in adult food allergies. And that may be linked to more vaccines. It could be linked to GMO. Now, as you know, there's been a big fight over GMO labeling and people being able to know what they're eating. But the Codex Alimentarius Commission and its various committees throughout the world want different labeling because GMO has got a negative connotation. So the labeling they prefer is the word biofortified. That's what they're going to use where labeling of some kind is required. They're not going to put GMO on there. They're going to say it's biofortified. So that's the word you need to look at. And again, the danger here is that there's really been no long-term human studies of what happens when you eat GMO food. Now, obviously, when you're cooking your food, the DNA gets destroyed. The altered genes get destroyed. The risk lies in protein malformation. Because when they go into a crop food, a crop, and they alter a gene, they'll get a desired result. But because DNA is incredibly self-referential, you can get unexpected behavior elsewhere. Other modified proteins that could cause harm and may not manifest for years. Okay, so as we get closer to the end of the show, let's talk a little bit about human-caused global warming. The Midwest and Northeast are being ravaged by the polar vortex. There's a major winter storm just came onto the West Coast. Illinois has recorded its coldest temperature on record. Aurora, Illinois has recorded the coldest afternoon on record. Mail deliveries and flights have been canceled. Governors in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan have declared emergencies. That's how serious it is. Now, over the weekend, of course, we had Groundhog Day, and Puxatawny Phil came on out and did not see his shadow, which tradition says means spring will be arriving here early. I don't really have a lot of confidence in the groundhog this year, but we'll see what happens with that. Over in Chicago, there have been these strange, loud sounds, and this polar vortex might be causing what are called frost quakes. And apparently, local news station WGN reported its viewers had heard frost quakes in the city overnight. Now, frost quakes or cryoseisms occur when water trapped underground freezes suddenly as the temperature drops, causing it to expand. Now, water is a rather unique material in that it expands as it freezes, becomes less dense. That's why the ice floats on top of your soda. Now, all that rapidly expanding water underground can split rocks and put stress on the soil, causing these cryoseisms. So it is really, really cold there. In fact, Chicago right now is colder than Antarctica. Of course, it is summer down in Antarctica, but still, for Chicago to be that cold, that is some serious, serious cold. Okay, Niagara Falls is now partially frozen. And apparently they had record-breaking minus 30-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. At least 21 people are dead. And apparently the cold has sparked a new crime wave in Chicago. Apparently there are these very comfortable Canada Goose coats. They're basically parkas, and they're lined with Canada Goose down, which is very insulating. The coats are very expensive. They sell for between $500 and $1,500, but apparently robbers are now stealing the coats during the cold wave, and they're using guns to get them. The coats are also seen as a status symbol, but I think maybe the cold has something to do with it here. Over in New Jersey, they actually had to shut down one of their nuclear reactors because it got so cold that the water flowing into the cooling system froze. The screens on the intake froze over, restricting the flow of water. And apparently a second unit at a station on the Delaware was temporarily closed for the same reason. So that is definitely very, very cold. And I've got family up there in New England, and they're saying that, yeah, this is one of the worst winters they remember ever seeing. All righty. Now, apparently over in Great Britain, drivers got stranded for 12 hours straight as the heavy snow hit Cornwall. Apparently, a bus carrying 26 school children was rescued. Hundreds of cars literally were abandoned on Thursday night. 6 inches of snow fell in just 45 minutes, causing the travel disruptions. Apparently, the kids on the school bus had to be ferried to safety in 4x4 vehicles. And by the way, if you have, well, actually, we're coming up here on a commercial break. So we're going to take a moment here for some words from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far 5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it.
And aloha, welcome back to our show here, and we're talking about the intense cold, and it turns out it's having a serious effect on electric vehicles, whether all electric or hybrid. Apparently, the extremely cold temperatures are basically affecting the ability of the batteries to hold a charge. And apparently, people are complaining that battery range is draining. The Model 3 door handles are freezing up. And you're going to have to take extra special care of their battery-powered vehicles. So, apparently disgruntled owners of Model 3s have been all over social media and online forums talking about these issues. But it's not going to be just Tesla. It's going to be any car that has one of these batteries in it. Now, on the upside, there are companies that during the winter specialize in snow removal, and business is booming for them. You know, cars, homes, and driveways are covered in all this snow. And for a lot of people, it's just too much work for them to clean it away, and they depend on professionals to get it out there. So this is big business. They call it white gold, money falling from the sky. So my brother has a snowplow on his pickup truck. He helps his neighbors clear their driveways here. Okay. The Insurance Bureau of Canada's decades-long campaign to raise alarms about the ravages of floods continued last week with an appearance by Blair Feltmate. This is a favorite star climate change witness for the biggest insurers at the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority's annual meeting. Now, apparently, what was going on there is they were trying to basically hype up the idea that you should have climate insurance, that you would have insurance that would pay off if the climate changed and caused you harm. And the big one, of course, is climate change melts the glacier up at the top of the mountain, your home gets flooded. But apparently CBC has recently had to admit that it wrongly reported these hyped up climate risks. So they have a little bit of egg on their face. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, remember last week she came on out and said the world has only 12 years left to live before climate change destroys us. And she's now blasting the tech giants for allowing both sides of the climate change debate to be heard. She's literally demanding online censorship of climate skeptics. So it's not going to stop with just Israel or GMO, or now they want to silence climate skeptics. And all we're doing, we're asking some very reasonable questions, like if the world is getting warmer, why are we getting these hard winters? And by the way, I did see an article in the corporate media where they were trying to explain how the polar vortex is caused by, you know, the Arctic getting so hot, and that's what brings cold air down here. And it really doesn't make much sense at all. I mean, the Arctic ice mass has set a new record. And we know what's going on. We know that the sun is going into a new Maunder minimum, or they're calling it the grand solar minimum. It's going to be with us for a few years here. The global warming carbon Nazis do not want to give up. Now, Rachel Maddow, a lot of people like her. I used to, not as much anymore. But apparently, when she was reporting last week on MSNBC about this cold snap, she couldn't resist doing the booga booga about, you know, how Russia could, you know, knock out our power grid and leave millions of Americans vulnerable to the cold. So she was out there doing that booga booga, and it led Paste Magazine to lead their story with, has Rachel Maddow entered her InfoWars period? And I don't think it's a fair comparison, but for Rachel Maddow to do that, yeah, I mean, can't you just leave Russia alone and report on the weather? Okay. Okay, now the hard reality is CO2 Science brought up a paper in Nature Communications using satellite images. They found an 8% increase in woody vegetation in sub-Saharan Africa over the last 3 decades, underscoring the global greening trade. That's what happens when you get more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's not a toxin, it's plant food. So the Sahara Desert has shrunk by 8%. All right, we got to take another break for commercials. We've got a caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go to the phones now, starting with Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. You mentioned that CBC article where they were basically bamboozled, and the fellow that did that, his name was Blair Feltmate.
Yes.
Feltmate, sorry. And, that's important. We need to say his name. And you said something about the Sahara shrinking.
Yes.
This morning on the CBC, the very same propaganda outlet you mentioned earlier, it says rising CO2 won't make trees grow more. Study suggests.
Now, that's a flat-out lie. I mean, rising CO2 levels make all plants grow faster. In fact, commercial greenhouses artificially add CO2 to their atmosphere inside to make the plants grow faster. But that's just utterly ridiculous.
Yes, that's why they use study suggests, right?
Yes.
So, anybody that can't see through that, well, it's too late. But on the on the well, actually, this is, and here we go some more. This afternoon I was driving, and I heard on the radio them pushing something called Russia Rising. I sent you the link in an email, and this was actually a commercial, pushing this stuff on a radio station where I live. I've never heard this before, Mike, and I mean ever. So it just goes to show you how far they're going now. So, Russia Rising, oh my goodness, they have to be contained.
Yeah, well, that's the propaganda. Russia's a threat. China's a threat. They're a threat to our way of life, which, we were all getting along just fine and dandy. And then somebody decided, well, we're going to have to conquer the world and remake it in the image of post-World War II America.
Yes, and those goons that actually go along with it have to, they have to remember something. Where do you think these people's gaze will fall after they get all the leaders in place that they want? Where will it fall?
Yeah.
It's going to fall on the useless eaters, the people that, are obviously not needed anymore because of automation. If they're willing to take out a leader right in front of everybody, they won't stop at anything. It's kind of creepy to think that stuff, but based upon what's happened throughout history, I can't help but follow the logic, and that's what I see.
Well, there have been some very dark times in history, like the Inquisition, the witch hunts, and we know that humans can be driven to acts of extreme barbarism by their political leaders, religious leaders, and it's hard to know. I mean, to me, it almost feels like we're descending into a new dark ages. And, you look at what's going on in our country with all this incited race hate, these ridiculous abortion laws, abortion at time of birth, the liberal hypersensitivity to everything, getting your knickers in a twist about something that happened 30 years ago in a medical school yearbook. It just feels like the chaos is building on a daily basis, and I don't know when it's going to break, but something has to let go.
Yeah, I agree. And these abortion laws, it just goes to show you how very little respect they actually have for life.
Yes. And this Virginia governor was a pediatric neurologist. I mean, his medical background was taking care of kids. And then he turns around and he says this.
Yeah. Well, Cuomo is a Catholic.
Yes.
I'm missing something.
Well, what's really amazing is how many clergy have come on out and saying that Planned Parenthood is doing sacred work. And it's almost like while they flood in the Central Americans to this country, they want to get rid of all the white people, even after they've been born.
Wow. It's amazing. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but now that you have actually said it, yeah, that scares me even more. You know what, Mike? I'm glad I'm not a newborn, or that too, but I'm glad I'm not a lot younger than I am.
Well,
I really am.
I'm the other way. I'd like to be a lot younger than I am right now, because these days I'm really feeling my age. Anyway, Al, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go, and we're going to switch to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good day, Michael. Michael, I was watching one of the sports cable networks, and they were saying if the Rams would win the Super Bowl, only 20% of their players would have went to the White House. Not if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, thank God. 90% of them players are going to go to see Trump in the White House, which I think is kind of ironic. And speaking of that, I was listening to another radio show talking today. They're talking about Los Angeles has 2.6 million illegals in that city. Michael, how can that be? Is that possible? I think, and I want you to maybe can do some study on that. How can there be 2.6 million in one city and nothing's getting done? They're not being rounded up and deported. Because that, right, like you were talking the other day, Texas has, 96,000 that voted illegally?
Yep.
You're talking over 2.5 million people in the city of Los Angeles are illegally in the state, in the country of the United States, in California. California, and then you got what Hannity said there's like 5.8 million or close to 6 million in the state illegally. I mean, in one state you almost got 6 million illegals, and most of them live in L.A. What is going on here? What is going on? Where's the ICE to see all that? In our government, Pentagon doesn't know how many illegals are in the city of L.A. And you got and then politically in a Super Bowl game, you got most of the players in L.A. say they wouldn't go see Trump in the White House, but the Patriots are the opposite. 80% of them guys will go see Trump. 90%. What is going on here? I mean, you talk about a country divided. And Michael, the reason I really called your show is I wanted to ask you, because you're pretty good at this, what's going to happen with England with Brexit? I heard something about the Queen might have to step down or something. What did I hear about? Something about the Queen might have to.
Well, the Queen is starting to get involved. You know, she's playing the role of, matriarch, saying, "Children, please play nice." But there is some talk that the Queen may get dragged into the Brexit debate. Now, there's nothing about Brexit that would make the Queen step down. Theresa May, on the other hand, she may be looking at a pink slip.
Yeah, but Michael, England's been invaded by Muslims. London, I heard London is almost 70% Muslim.
Yep.
The mayor's a Muslim, and the Queen better watch out because it's like when they built the wall around the Vatican. Why did they build the wall around the Vatican? To keep the Moors out, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was to keep the Moors from invading Rome and sacking the place.
Well, it was for general protection. That was one of the reasons. But if you look at the history of the papacy, the Pope always had to be concerned about making a mistake and the congregation deciding, to whack him. And if you ever visit the Vatican, and in fact, it's even in the movie Angels and Demons, where there's this little over-the-street walkway. It goes for a couple of blocks from the Vatican itself to the Castle San Angelo, which was used as a fortress and a prison. And that's where the Pope could hold on up if he outraged the congregation.
Yeah, well, Michael, let me ask you. Tomorrow Trump's going to give the speech.
Yes.
I think Wednesday he's got to build the wall. I tell you, bring the Army Corps of Engineers, build the wall, and he literally can't give DACA. DACA cannot be given. He's got to say, I rescind DACA, everybody's going back.
Yeah.
I tell you, if they cave in on this, it's going to be over for like you were mentioning, it's going to be over for the Anglos in this country. I really believe that.
Well, if Trump doesn't get these illegal voters,
it's all sheer numbers.
If Trump doesn't get these illegal voters to stop voting, we're going to become a one-party nation like the former Soviet Union, because the GOP is just going to fade away.
Definitely, Michael. And I know a few people where I'm at. They are Venezuelan, and they do love this country, but they love their country even more, and they want to go back there to a free society where they have a democracy. But I know I've talked to some Venezuelans that I know, and yeah, they love everything the United States has done for them. They don't want to be here. They want to go back to their country and make it great, like Trump's trying to do here. As far as being proud of your nationality, your nationalism, your flag, and everything. But they're being here because of communism. They keep saying that Venezuela, that's not socialism, that's communism. That's a dictatorship, and most of the people in Venezuela are starving. I mean,
Venezuela's been targeted by, decades of U.S. economic war. I mean, this goes back to when Hugo Chavez was there. And the issues were that Venezuela was selling its oil for currencies other than the dollar. They were actually able to sell oil in the United States for less than American oil companies could. And I remember there was the last time that we had a really hard winter, Venezuela actually donated fuel oil to make sure that everybody had heating in the United States.
That's right. I remember that. Mm-hmm. But Michael, what really is the most mind-blowing thing to me is when you got guys like Schumer and Pelosi, and you got Netanyahu in Israel telling Trump, "Oh, our wall works perfect, but we can't have you." But Pelosi and Schumer are saying you can't have a wall in the southern border of the United States. But here you got this guy Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, saying our wall looks perfect. Well, why don't we use their plans and then build the same wall they got? Have the same technology as Israel?
Yeah, I mean,
my point.
That would certainly make a lot of sense. I mean, look at the wall along Mexico's southern border. Look at the one that got built basically across Europe. It's just basically, chain link fence with concertina wire on the top, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get over. But the problem is we've got to do something. We can't just go on the way we are right now. We're talking, literally $1 trillion hit to our economy. We're talking threat to public health from all these illnesses that used to be eradicated in this country, and they're coming back in, and the doctors are really happy because it means they can sell more medicine. But it's not good for the American
Michael,
people. Sorry?
Yeah, Michael, one more thing. This governor of Virginia, Michael, the Republican Party had pictures of him, I guess, when they were running against this guy, but they didn't release him. And this guy he got elected as the governor, and now you got the lieutenant governor. He has a sexual harassment charge on him. And these people in Virginia, which used to be a kind of a red state, now it's a total blue state. I wonder what's going to happen now. And the Republicans actually sold their own guy out because they want to release a picture of this guy in blackface or something. I heard that story on Breitbart yesterday, I think it was, and they're talking about this. The GOP knew that this guy had a picture about that, but they would release it. So I'm wondering what's going to happen with that story. That's another crazy story I've heard on Breitbart. Gee whiz.
Well,
okay.
The last I've heard is Democrats are calling on the governor to resign. He's saying he won't resign, so we'll see where that goes.
Right. All right, thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open again. Getting on back to the news here. Apparently, there was maybe a slip up. But apparently, remember Cheryl Atkinson, two-time Emmy Award-winning TV news anchor. And she used to be with CNN, then CBS. Now she has a show on ABC. And basically posted about this story that came on out that during the recent measles epidemic in New York, in 90 of the 124 cases of measles, the patients had been vaccinated for measles. And again, it raises the possibility. Are these attenuated pathogens actually producing a herd immunity? Is herd immunity even real? Or are these vaccines actually causing illness? Now, Cheryl Atkinson has covered vaccines for decades now. She was one of the first to question Merck's Gardasil, along with Katie Couric. So, all right, getting on down to Africa, the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo continues to worsen. And they're saying it's absolutely vital that everybody be prepared. In just one day, they recorded 7 new cases. There are now 743 people have been infected. 461 of those have died. So we're looking at a mortality rate of above 50%. So this is a nasty one. It's not as bad as the Mayinga. That one was a slate wiper, better than 90% mortality. The real concern that they have in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the World Health Organization is how many of these infected people are getting close or already in urban areas that are also transportation hubs. And because of all the violence in the region, it's been hard to contain infected people because they're always running. They're running to stay safe from the violence here. Apparently in South Sudan, they're now using Merck's unlicensed trial vaccine for Ebola. And this began just about a week ago. And they're concerned that the disease is going to cross the border. Alrighty, do you remember the X-37B? That's that cute little robotic space shuttle. Looks like the baby brother to the original space shuttle, but it's unmanned. Still got the tiles all over it. It has now spent 500 days in orbit. And of course, we still have no idea what it's doing up there. There is a suggestion that it is going to be a future part of the U.S. Space Force that Donald Trump has been talking about. So, anyway. Remember that big meteor that came down over Russia a couple of years ago? Shattered windows, shockwaves all over. They had one come down over western Cuba, and it was loud enough to be heard in the Florida Keys. And it also shattered windows, made extremely loud sounds. Somebody's throwing rocks at us up there. All right, we're coming up here on our last commercial break, followed by our last segment of today's program, and we will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com, educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included to American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. That toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program today. And if you ever go to London, and I know it's kind of dicey under current events, but if you go, you have to make a point of visiting the British Museum. And you'll see a lot of very wonderful things, let's be honest, looted from around the world. And among them are what are called the Elgin marbles. And the Elgin marbles used to be the carved statue decorations at the top of the Parthenon. And Britain basically took them, brought them back to the museum. They're on display there and you can see them. Greece, of course, has been asking for them back, saying that, you know, it's their cultural treasure, and Great Britain basically committed a crime in stealing them. And of course, this all happened back in the 1800s. But the British Museum director, Hartwig Fisher, drew a backlash for saying that the removal of the marbles from Greece was a creative act and they won't be returned. He's saying that the shifting of the marbles from their original environment is also a creative act. Now, apparently, basically, he's saying Britain might loan some of these artifacts back to Greece, but only when Athens recognized the British Museum's ownership of them. That is just really tacky. Just tacky here. Okay, somebody just sent me this cool little article. We were talking before about Punxsutawney Phil and Groundhog Day, and he didn't see his shadow, and therefore, according to him, spring will be arriving early. And apparently, this is a serious enough subject where somebody's been keeping track of whether Phil is accurate or not, and as it turns out, not very. In fact, Phil is right 39% of the time, which means effectively he's guessing, or whoever's holding him is guessing, because all the groundhog does is sit there and squirm in the gloves. And it really is a matter of, is it cloudy? He doesn't see a shadow. Is the sun out? He sees a shadow. Now, in my family in New Hampshire, Groundhog Day was a big deal. We would have Groundhog Day cakes. Little tinfoil groundhog covered with chocolate frosting on that. But apparently Phil is not very good as a climatologist or a weather predictor. I think the cold is going to continue, and I think you should all be, if you live in the Midwest, if you live in the Northeast where all of this is happening, you should be really taking care of preparations. Be prepared. Don't take a chance going outside without proper warm clothing. People have literally frozen solid in this cold. So be careful. We need all of you. Okay, there's the music. Time for me to, I got to go Jim Goddard this morning. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's going to have a lot of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know, and donate to RBN, donate to What Really Happened. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha, America.